It is the weekend, which means it's time to talk travel. Welcome to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. Coming up on today's show, we will be talking about cruise cabins that will accommodate a family of 5. In case you don't know, that's a big deal. Princess Cruises has announced that they will be sailing from San Juan, a totally underrated island, by the way. A simple way to visit Europe with Globus and Cosmos, and Delta is officially teaming up with Uber. Oh, sure, now they do it. Let's start the show. The Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, contains travel deals, promotions, and offers that may be time sensitive. All offers and information were accurate when the show aired. Travel deals and offers change constantly and are capacity controlled and subject to change without notice.
Explore your world. It's the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. Call or text the show now, 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700, and check out the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com. And now, here are your hosts, Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo.
Good morning. Welcome to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. Hello there. I am Patrick Wiscombe. Mark Faldmo will be here in just a moment. Coming up on today's episode of the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, we will be talking about cruise cabins that will accommodate a family of 5. Now, if you're new to cruising, this is a big deal. You wouldn't think that going from 4 to 5 people in the same room would be an issue, but it is, and we've got a solution for it. Princess Cruises has now announced that they will be sailing from San Juan, Puerto Rico, which, by the way, Nikki and I were there about 3 weeks ago. Really like San Juan. Beautiful place. And we have a simple way to visit Europe with Globus and Cosmos. If you are brand new to the show, the entire purpose of this radio show and podcast is to help you plan and book your next vacation. And if you don't know where to go, we're going to give you ideas of where to go. And this show is presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. And just a big thank you, truly. Thank you for taking the time to stop and listen, because without you, we don't have a company, we don't have a radio show, we don't have a podcast. Coming up in this segment, we've got the destination of the week, and we want you to be part of the show. So if you have travel-related questions, text us now or call us. 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700. And we'll get to the text here just a little bit later, but let's get to the travel news headlines. I saw that Delta and LATAM, which is Latin American Airlines, expanded their joint venture agreement to Argentina.
So this is exciting because this connects more of South America to Delta Airlines network. This new part of the joint venture is adding Argentina. This actually started in 2019, so it already includes destinations in Chile, Peru, Colombia, and Brazil, but now they are adding 5 airports, including Buenos Aires, to their network.
Argentina is one of those surprisingly awesome destinations.
It is. Great steaks there.
I wasn't expecting you to go food there.
I always come back to food. So Argentina is a great destination. It's also the starting point for many of those South American cruises that go to Antarctica and around the Cape to Chile. So this new partnership will make it easier for at least Delta flyers to get to those destinations.
I thought this was kind of funny. How to survive your 2025 European vacation. Was this the text from one of our listeners?
No, that's a little bit later. This was just a story that kind of goes along with that, because now people are starting to begin their trips to Europe. The busy season kind of starts mid-May, goes through mid-September. So these are just a couple tips. Some of these things we've talked about before. Other things are just kind of tips for people to remember. The first thing is, remember, there's a new entry requirement for the United Kingdom. You do have to purchase an electronic travel authorization to enter the United Kingdom. It's not hard. You fill out an online form, pay about $20 a person, and it's just attached to your passport number. But you do have to get that authorization before traveling to the United Kingdom.
And you can help people with that, right?
Yes, it's easy. I actually just helped one of my customers with that last week.
Okay.
So it's something you have to do on your own, but I can help walk you through it.
Okay.
The next thing is check your passport expiration date. Many countries require that your passport be valid for 3 or 6 months after your last date of travel. This is probably the biggest issue I run into is people that having a passport that expires too close to the end of their trip. A lot of people don't think of that. They think if my passport's valid, then I should be able to travel. But again, a lot of countries do require that longer expiration date from your passport.
If it's valid, it's valid. But why does it have to be 3 to 6 months after? And sometimes even, haven't you told me even a year?
I've seen a year in one case. I can't even remember what country it was. And that might have been some weird COVID rule or something
right.
When I saw that. Again, a lot are 3 to 6 months. And it's because, say you have a medical emergency and you're there, they just want to make sure that you are covered to get home and don't have to go through that hassle of renewing your passport there. So a lot of countries actually also require proof of a return ticket.
Interesting. Okay.
Some require proof of insurance. And so country by country, you kind of have to look at and see. But the main thing is this expiration date.
When Nikki and I were on MSC's World America, this would have been about 2 to 3 weeks ago, we took off from Puerto Rico, Old San Juan. And in the middle of the night, several hours in, you can check on whatever map application you're using. You can see where you are, assuming you have Wi-Fi. You can see where you are on your phone. And she goes, I was wondering why we had been sailing for about 3-4 hours, and all of a sudden we were very, very close to Puerto Rico. Well, it turns out that the ship turned around in the middle of the night. I was fast asleep. She was awake. And it turns out that they had a medical emergency where they actually turned the ship around because and I met the nurse who was attending this particular person on Ocean Key, MSC's private island, and I just happened to run into him. And he goes, hey, I'm the nurse. I said, did something really happen in Puerto Rico? He goes, yes. One of our guests, he's very polite, very professional, that experienced cardiac arrest. And so that's why they turned the ship around. He got off. So in terms of my question of why do you need a passport past that expiration date, that's a good example of what could happen. I'm not saying everyone's going to experience cardiac arrest, but it does happen.
It does, yeah.
What's the number 3 reason of how to survive the 2025 European vacation?
Summer will bring the crowds. So expect crowds, but also, as what we talked about last week, protect your money, your passports, all of that. Pickpocketers love crowds. And so you want to make sure and protect your important information. Last week, we talked about the RFID money belts and money necklaces that can protect your money, credit cards, and passports if you need to bring them with you on a shore excursion. So go back and review those tips that we talked about last week.
It was the May 3rd show? I think it was.
May 3rd show.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a good segue. If you want to listen to other shows that we have done in the past, go to insidetraveltalk.com, insidetraveltalk.com. You can just stream the show on the website, but we'd also appreciate if you would subscribe to the show. Okay, sorry. Tip number 4 for Europe.
Always have a plan B. More important than ever. Things change, flight schedules, train schedules. Have a plan B if you need to go somewhere else or do something different. Don't have as regimented of a day planned out for tours and activities. Be flexible on what you're doing. Travel is amazing and fun, but as I found in all my traveling, it doesn't always go as you planned. So always have a plan B. Sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small, but always have a plan B.
I'm going to throw something else in here. Make sure you have just a little bit of extra money, whether that be on a credit card, cash, whatever, because when unexpected expenses come up, if you're so tight on money, and there are people who are financially really tight, you better have a little bit of cash or a little bit of credit line still, because stuff does come up.
Correct. Yep. The last thing, be a considerate traveler. Treat people with kindness. That includes the airline employees, your tour guides, all of that, even the local people. Just be a considerate traveler. Respect their cultures and traditions, rules and laws, and you'll have a great trip.
Before we go to break, we received a text from one of our listeners. Last 4 numbers are 8963. I like this text, and it's a direct result of last week's show. He is a 70-year-old man and he says in the text, I've never been to Europe. I would like to go to England. What other destinations in Europe would you recommend, Mark?
The first thing is you could do the British Isles, so go to England, do London, and then go up to Edinburgh, which is really easy to do. So you could do that kind of England and Scotland. Trains are easy access to get there. When I looked at this, I looked at the ease of transportation to get from place to place.
Okay.
So that's option one. You could do any of this on a Globus tour or Cosmos tour where they take care of all of the transportation for you. But if you want to do it on your own, you could do that England-Scotland tour. Option two would be either a London and Paris or a London and Amsterdam. You can take the Eurostar channel to those two destinations, and you can do a combination, again, London-Paris or London-Amsterdam. Personally, of those options, I would prefer Amsterdam. I love Amsterdam, staying kind of in the central area, in the canal area, walking around. It's just such a lovely destination to visit.
I hope that answers the question. Thank you for reaching out to us. If you have travel-related questions, contact the show during the break here, if you would. 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700. If you have your travel-related question, we don't care if you think it's a dumb question. Even if it's a complex question, we can break things down for you. 801-649-3700. Get a hold of us during the break. When we come back, we've got the hot travel deal of the week, always in segment number 2, and we will be talking about Cancun. We got a little bit of a warning on that one. And we've got the hot travel deal of the week with Cosmos and Globus. The best ways to see London, Italy. We'll get to that next. When the Inside Travel Talk podcast or radio show continues, alongside my good friend Mark Faldmo, my name is Patrick Wiscombe. Thank you so much for allowing us to be part of your weekend. We will be right back.
Taking you to destinations around the world. The Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show is presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Call or text the show now. 801-649-3700. 801-649-3700. Thanks for listening. We'll be right back.
Inside Travel Talk is brought to you by AMA Waterways. From castles and capitals to vistas and villages, visit some of Europe's most remarkable sites and cities. To set out on your own river cruise journey, contact Blue Planet Vacations at 888-718-7717 or blueplanetvacations.com.
Now, back to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Call or text the show right now, 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700, and check out the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com. Here's Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo.
Coming to you live from the beautiful confines of Salt Lake City, Utah. You are listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast, a radio show. My name is Patrick Wiscombe. Mark Faldmo is, I wish I had some relaxing music right now. He is in Fiji. And where are you staying down there, Mark?
I'm staying at the Sheraton in Fiji. I'll be here until actually next Saturday, and I'll do the show again from Fiji again, and we'll talk all about what I did in Fiji.
It's some rough sledding there, buddy.
Yes.
What are you staring at right now? Just paint the visual for everyone. I know you're in the hotel room looking out.
In the hotel room. I'm actually in a garden view room, so I'm just looking out to grass and trees. So no good beach view right here, but I love Fiji.
All I heard was Fiji. Coming up in this segment of the show, we will be talking about a warning for tourists in Cancun. We'll get to that here in just a second. We also have the hot travel deal of the week, and we're going to tell listeners how you can save up to $500 per couple on some of these tours by Globus and Cosmos.
There's some great offers on Europe tours right now.
Let's get to the travel news headlines. U.S. airlines are revising their forecast with decreasing demand in air travel. That surprised me because every flight that I've been on in the last 30 days has been literally, they just say, hey, we're full front to back. I guess I'm just kind of surprised.
There is decreasing demands. There's some jitters in the economy, and so people aren't flying. Delta this year expects, when they release their first 3 months of the year, not forecast because it's done, but 500 million less in revenue than they initially forecast. A lot of that is due to snowstorms in the southeast and the northeast, and the LA wildfires really impacted airlines' revenue in the first quarter of this year. And then that has also just translated to people just aren't looking to fly anymore. But I put this in a different frame. What does that mean to the vacation traveler? It means lower prices. There's more seats available for less demand in travel. I'll give a quick example. This trip I'm on in Fiji now, they paid for my airfare and hotel from Los Angeles to Fiji, but I had to get my own way to Los Angeles.
Sure.
When I first looked at that about 4 weeks ago, the price was about $460 to get Salt Lake to Los Angeles, which is very expensive.
Oh yeah, that's what
But then about 2 weeks, actually it was about 7 days before I left, so it was about 10 days ago, I looked again at that. I decided to gamble and wait.
Yeah.
And that airfare dropped down to $320 for the exact same flights. And so, we talked about Costa Rica last week. I've never seen Costa Rica prices that low. And it's because the airfares have dropped $200 to $300 per person for some of these destinations. So there is lower demand, but if you want to travel, this is a great time to start looking for travel.
We talked about that on the May 3rd show. Again, if you want to listen to that show or any of our previous shows, go to InsideTravelTalk.com. You can just stream the show right there, or you can subscribe. We're on all of the major podcast platforms. Yeah, that was the first time that you mentioned that Costa Rica was about at the $1,000 mark, including, 5 nights hotel, flights to and from Salt Lake City, around $1,000. Which, what did you say? It was about $300-$400 less than what it normally goes for?
Than what it normally goes. Yeah.
Take advantage of that.
That's what the declining demand means. Now, later on, it might mean flight schedule updates, so cancellations, consolidation. But right now, it is meaning really good prices to fly.
Do it. I saw a story that tourists visiting Cancun are being warned to be cautious on all beaches after some incidents. First of all, what were the incidents?
This is related to the waves and the power of the ocean. And so they've had to come out and just make people extra aware to pay attention. If it's a double red flag day, don't even touch the water. Along the hotel zone there in Cancun, there is no reef that really protects that. So those waves can get pretty big and pretty dangerous in the hotel zone. Sometimes it's glass and sometimes they're huge. So you just have to be careful of what the authorities have put out as far as flags. So, again, a red flag is don't swim. Yellow flag is use caution. And a green flag is conditions are okay.
I've never seen a double red flag before. I've seen a red flag before, but not double red.
Double red flag means the ocean is close to the public due to extremely dangerous conditions. Just a single red flag, it's generally not recommended to swim when a red flag is posted. It means the conditions are dangerous due to strong currents, high surf, or other hazards. A yellow flag is caution. Conditions might include moderate surf. Swimming is allowed, but you should be careful and aware if you're not a strong swimmer. And then a green flag, conditions are generally calm and swimming is considered safe.
While we're talking about visiting parts of the world, let's talk about Globus and Cosmos. First of all, who are they? Globus, I know they're basically a tour operator, but Cosmos, I'm assuming that they are also a tour operator.
Cosmos falls under the Globus family of brands. So there's Globus Tours. They generally use 4 or 5-star hotels that are a little bit more centrally located. Cosmos is a little bit more of a budget company. They use 3-4-star hotels that are not as well located. They might be on the outskirts of town. They're mainly a price difference. They have very similar tours. Globus Tours generally include a few more meals than Cosmos Tours. And then Cosmos, again, is more of the, I don't want to say budget, but they're more of the better priced tours.
A couple weeks ago, we had TJ McAvoy with Globus on the show. But one of the things we didn't talk about was what they call their hub and spoke tours. So let's talk about that.
This is a great idea. They are tours that generally you'll just stay 6 or 7 nights in one city, but then they include all of the prearranged tours and also some optional activities that you can do. These tours are great because they include some built-in flexibility. They give you free time to explore, also stress-free travel because they do include a lot of those main tours, main things that you'll want to do and see. And you have a tour director with you at the whole time. So you have someone there that can answer all of your questions about the destinations, where to eat, what to do.
That could be a real benefit for some people.
It is, yeah. And also these provide more value. So not only do you have the knowledge of the local tour guide that's with you, you have a single price that covers accommodation, transportation, all of your guides. Everything's handled in advance. I've often told the story. I love it when I'm with these tours because I'm getting so much good information. And then I see other people with their heads in guidebooks. They're trying to figure out what to do, where to see. A lot of people, I think, waste so much time trying to figure things out when they do it on their own. It's just so much better to do it with a local guide that can help you figure all of that out.
This could be a real option for our listener. The text that we received, the 70-year-old gentleman who's never been to Europe that wants to go, this could be a legitimate option for him.
It is, yeah. And these hub and spoke tours, they actually can do them in combination. So you could do a London and Paris.
Okay.
You do a few nights in London, a few nights in Paris with everything taken into account in between, all the transportation. So yes, that definitely is a good option for the texter.
Let's get to the hot travel deal of the week, which is going to be a Globus and Cosmos option.
Yeah, so I'm going to give the current offer for both of these brands. Cosmos, again, which is the little bit more budget brand, is $300 per couple off of select tours. Also, one thing to note, Cosmos also has a selection of tours. Some of them start at around $1,000 a person for these tours. And then Globus has save up to $500 on select tours.
What locations are we talking about?
What I've done, I've chosen 3 of these kind of hub and spoke tours, and we'll go over what is included. So the first one is a Globus tour. So this does have that $500 off per couple. This tour is called London Country. It's a 6-night, 7-day tour where you stay in London the whole time. It includes a few meals along the way, but what it does include are side trips to the Cotswolds, to Oxford and Stratford-upon-Avon, side trips to Stonehenge and Salisbury, as well as some trips in London itself.
Okay.
So just a great way to get a kind of a comprehensive London tour.
What about Cosmos? What place did you select there?
I've got 2 tours with Cosmos. Both of them are in Italy. The first one is called Gourmet Tuscany. And so this is a 8-day, 7-night tour, and you actually stay in Tuscany in Montalcini.
Anything in southern Italy?
This is kind of an off the beaten path. It's called Gourmet Puglia. Now, a lot of people probably don't know where Puglia is, but it is in the Hill of the Boot of Italy. So it's the little peninsula that's the Hill of the Boot. 7-night, 8-day tour with just that hub and spoke concept where you're going to Bari, and then most of it is in Martina Franca is the name of the city, and then you just go out and see different areas in the Hill of the Boot of Italy. And I have never been in that area. It looks fascinating, some of these tours that they offer. So, these little hub and spoke tours are a great way to get a really in-depth vacation in certain regions of countries.
This option is kind of interesting.
And it's a great way to see places around Europe.
That's the hot travel deal of the week. If you are interested in going on a Globus or Cosmos tour, the ones that we talked about, or if you want to go to a different location, they're a great company and they do a great job with their tours. Call Mark. He can book it for you, or just get the conversation started. 888-718-7717, 888-718-7717, and he will also post this on blueplanetvacations.com. When we come back, it is time for the infamous Just Cruising segment. We've got the cruise news of the week, and we've got the cruise deal of the week. We've got a Princess Cruise and other Southern Caribbean sailings. That is next. When the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show continues, alongside Mark Faldmo, my good friend, who's in Fiji. You should have taken me, Mark.
Yep.
My name is Patrick Wiscombe. Thank you so much for allowing us to be part of your weekend. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show with Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Call or text the show now, 801-649-3700. That's 801-649-3700. And check out the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com. We'll be right back.
This segment of Inside Travel Talk is sponsored by Star Clippers. For over 30 years, Star Clippers has offered unique, authentic tall ship sailing experiences featuring creative itineraries throughout the Mediterranean, Caribbean, and Central America. To book your unique Star Clipper sailing adventure, contact Blue Planet Vacations at 888-718-7717 or BluePlanetVacations.com.
Welcome back to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. Coming up in the next 28 minutes, we will be talking about Southern Caribbean cruises. Nikki and I literally spent 30 days in the Caribbean last month. Amazing. And we'll also be talking about cruise cabins that accommodate a family of 5. Let's continue the show. The Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, contains travel deals, promotions, and offers that may be time sensitive. All offers and information were accurate when the show aired. Travel deals and offers change constantly and are capacity controlled and subject to change without notice.
This is the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Call or text the show right now, 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700. And now, here are your hosts, Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo.
All aboard for the infamous Just Cruising segment right here on the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. By the way, that is an actual ship horn, courtesy of Norwegian Aqua, as they were blowing their horn in the port of Miami. Kind of a funny story on that, Mark, is, well, it's not a funny story. It literally almost brought me to my knees, and I nearly threw my phone off the side of the one of the decks. I was facing the horn, meaning I was looking back at the smokestack where the horn was, and they blew the horn. It scared me so badly, I nearly fell to my knees and threw my phone down to the pool deck.
Those ship horns can sneak up on you.
Nikki was laughing so hard, and so was I, because I couldn't believe how loud it was. Coming up in this segment of the show, we've got the cruise deal of the week, always at the bottom of the hour. But let's first get to the cruise news, travel headlines, and Holland America Line is going to stay longer in Europe starting next year, 2026.
They have added an extra 6 weeks to their Europe season. Usually cruise lines, end of September or mid-October, send their ships from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean. But Holland America has decided to leave a few ships in Europe for an extra 6 weeks. One of the reasons being is 2026 is predicted to be a peak year to see the Aurora Borealis. And
there
so
we go.
They've added a couple of extra they've added, which they haven't done in the past, some Northern Lights cruises. Here are just some of the new itineraries they've added where they're extending Europe. So they have a Northern Lights journey. It's a 14-day Arctic journey that leaves November 7th, 2026. It includes time spent in the Arctic Circle, which will maximize your chances to see the Aurora Borealis. Other newly opened voyages, a 14-day Mediterranean and Atlantic Treasures cruise, which has an overnight stay in Lisbon. And I think one of these days I'm going to have to do Portugal as the destination of the week, because I think it is the hottest destination in Europe right now. So I've heard so much about visiting Portugal, how fantastic it is.
If you ever have a chance to see Northern Lights, do it. It is genuinely beautiful, and it kind of takes your breath away, and it makes you realize how small you are.
It is, yeah. And, you know, these cruises, I think a cruise is a great way to do that, because they can move around to some extent. Hopefully they can get to a better viewing location to see those.
Less light pollution. You talk about being in the middle of the sea, and it is just pitch black.
Yes.
Kind of terrifying, but at the same time, it's kind of magical too.
Yeah, it is. A few other cruises, they've added a series of 7-day Norway cruises and then a 15-day cultural crossing with England and Normandy. So that's probably the last cruise when they're going to, send the ship back off to the Caribbean area in late November.
Norwegian Cruise Line is canceling some cruises. Did I get that right?
You did. And that's for a reason. 2 ships are leaving the Norwegian Cruise Line fleet.
Oh, so they're getting rid of a couple ships then.
They're getting rid of a couple of ships.
Oh, interesting.
I don't like this announcement, because one of the ships is probably my second favorite ship in the Norwegian fleet, which is the Norwegian Sky.
Oh,
now,
really?
This is the smallest ship in their fleet at 77,000 gross tons.
Tiny.
The 3 ships you are on are 3 times the size of this ship. But personally, I like the smaller ship. It has less than 2,000 people, and I really like the Norwegian Sky. And then the other ship that's leaving the fleet is the Norwegian Sun, which is probably my least favorite of Norwegian, because it has a weird deck where some of the outside cabins are right on the promenade deck, so you have people walking past your cabin.
Yeah, we did that on Holland America line, the Rotterdam. That would have driven me crazy if we had, I can't remember what deck it was. It was like deck 12 or something. We were walking past people's cabins, and the amount of commotion outside of the room would have driven me crazy.
Yeah, I've sailed on the Norwegian Sun probably 6 times, but it is my least favorite. And I think I cannot confirm this, but I've seen some other stories about some cruise lines that have acquired ships. They're going to make them residential ships where you just buy your cabin and you sail around the world. They're like condominiums as the ship sails.
Oh, wow.
So I think that's what 1 or 2 of these ships is going to do, just be a residential ship.
So are they going to sell off these ships then?
I did see that I think they are actually selling the Norwegian Sky and they are leasing the Norwegian Sun to someone else.
Okay. So, Princess has announced that they are going to start sailing from San Juan starting this fall 2025, which, by the way, we docked in Old San Juan on MSC World America. Old San Juan is sneaky good. It was hot when we were there, but it was a beautiful island. I loved all of the different buildings that were different colors, pastel colors. It was a very, you could walk friendly port.
Yes.
Loved it.
I love San Juan. I've been to San Juan 6 or 7 times, and I just enjoy walking around Old San Juan. I remember walking through some of those narrow streets and popping out into a square with a cathedral.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sat down at one of the cafes and had breakfast there, and it was fascinating. So, yeah, I love San Juan, especially Old Town San Juan.
Yeah, some of those cathedrals, Nikki and I went inside, and we probably spent, 10, 15 minutes. Not because we were hot, but it was a cathedral that had, what was it, like 1,500? Like it'd been around for
a long time.
For, like 400 or 500 years. And it was amazing.
I'm excited about this, that Princess has announced their return to San Juan, because those Southern Caribbean cruises that leave from San Juan get to some absolutely fascinating ports that you typically don't get to if you're leaving from Miami or Fort Lauderdale, unless they're really long cruises. 7-day cruise, you can really get down to like Grenada, some of those islands that are just fascinating to visit. I know another cruise line, Royal Caribbean, actually just recently announced that they are starting back their Southern Caribbean cruises. These cruises seem to come and go, but I think they're a great option for cruise lines to have in their fleet.
Do we know which ship they're going to deploy?
It's one ship, and the ship is the Grand Princess.
In my head, San Juan, Puerto Rico was not a great place to go. But after getting there and actually getting out and literally walking the port, my experience didn't match what was inside of my head, which is the beauty of travel. It can completely change your perspective on a place. That leads into the cruise deal of the week, which is going to be Princess Cruises. What do we have for listeners this week?
Right now, their current promotion, which goes for about another 2 weeks or so, they actually might enhance this a little bit over Memorial Day. Their current promotion is up to a $400 instant savings. And that's based on the length of cruise and the type of cabin you're in, plus up to 40% off, plus free room upgrades, plus $99 deposits on sailings.
That's a really good promotion then. And your overall thoughts of Princess, just as a company, their ships, do you recommend them?
I love Princess. You have to look at the reason why you're traveling and where you're traveling, because I think some cruises do better in other destinations. The two cruise lines I've cruised on the most are Norwegian and Princess, so I am a little bit biased towards those. But, I love Princess. We've been talking a lot about MSC and their pizza. I actually think MSC might have Princess beat out slightly.
What?
But Princess for years has had the best pizza at sea. I love just going on the pool deck, and that's where their pizza place is. So
them were fighting words, Mark.
Yeah. So, I just like the location better of where Princess's pizza is, but they're very similar in quality of pizza.
This might gross you out, but MSC's pizza was so good. Maybe I'm going to gross myself out. I was even drinking the cheese juice that was on my plate.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. Man, that was so good. Sorry. Sorry about the cheese juice, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. What other promotion do we have, or is that the only one that we have for Princess?
We have two sailings we're going to talk about. Princess has two different versions of that Southern Caribbean cruise. These are October dates, but the prices are phenomenal. So leave from San Juan, goes to St. Thomas, St. Martin, Antigua, and then to St. Kitts, to Barbados, a day at sea, and back to San Juan. That's another reason why I like these Southern Caribbean cruises. You have a lot more port time and a lot less days at sea. This one is October 19th that I'm looking at. Inside cabin starts at $669, but a balcony. Now, this is a partially obstructed balcony, but it's a balcony nonetheless. $729 per person for a balcony cabin on October 19th to the Southern Caribbean.
Wow.
You can go up, it's probably about another $80 to go to a regular balcony cabin.
It is worth getting a balcony. Taking in that ocean air, the breeze. Oh my goodness. It was so relaxing. One of the most special experiences of my life is just hanging out on the balcony with my wife.
It is. I think the balcony is so worth it.
Oh yeah.
So they have another one, and this is October 12th or October 26th. And this is the itinerary I would pick. I love these islands that we go to. They're not typical. That first itinerary we gave has St. Thomas and St. Martin, which are two typical Eastern Caribbean cruises. This next one is a true Southern Caribbean cruise. Goes to Tortola, which is British Virgin Islands, St. Kitts, Dominica, Grenada, Barbados, and back to San Juan. 5
port days and then basically a day getting to and from.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is great.
The things I like about these cruises, you're getting British Virgin Islands, Dutch Virgin Islands. Some of these have French influence. So you're getting lots of different cultures in the Southern Caribbean. Now, these prices, they're a little bit more expensive than the October 19th cruise that we talked about, but I think this is by far a better itinerary. So October 26th date starts at $765 per person for an inside, or $860 per person for a balcony cabin.
Oh, wow. Do we know which ship this one's on? The Southern Caribbean?
Yeah, and that's on the Grand Princess. And so, it's there from October to about April of next year.
Have you seen some of the new ships that Princess is releasing? They're beautiful.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, Princess has always done a good job with their design. I like the interiors of Princess ships. I think they always have the best decor, I guess you would say. I really like what Princess does with their ships.
Their horn, while we were opening this segment, we were talking about horns. Their horn is literally the Love Boat theme song.
Yeah, it is. That's what I like about it. And Disney does a similar thing with their horn, but so I like those two. When there's a Princess ship or a Disney ship in port and they blow their horn and either do When You Wish Upon a Star or on Disney, or Princess plays the Love Boat theme song. In the distance, when we were getting on Celebrity Ascent, they were playing the Love Boat theme, and you could hear in the distance. I don't know where on the where he was on the ship, but all of a sudden you hear the Love Boat, and and I got it on video. Absolutely hilarious. Get out, see the world. San Juan, Puerto Rico, love it. Whatever your perception is, and I realize that I'm putting my feelings on everyone else, it is an amazing place. It is worth getting to. Call Mark in his office. Get the conversation started. Take advantage of those promotions. 888-718-7717. 888-718-7717. When we come back, we've got some additional travel news that we need to get to. Mark's travel tips, and we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for allowing us to be part of your weekend. We will be right back.
Explore your world. You're listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show with Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo. Call or text the show now. 801-649-3700. That's 801-649-3700. And check out the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com. We'll be right back.
This segment of Inside Travel Talk is sponsored by El Dorado Spa Resorts. Escape to Cancun's Riviera Maya with authentic, all-inclusive luxury at an El Dorado Spa Resort. To book your romantic beach getaway, contact Blue Planet Vacations at 888-718-7717 or blueplanetvacations.com.
This is the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show with Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Call the show right now, 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700. And now, your hosts, Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo.
Coming to you live from Fiji, the Sheraton Denarau Island. That is where Mark is this very moment as we come to you on the radio show and podcast. I'm looking at your live cam. I know you're just looking at the greenness, but even that green is beautiful.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. Fiji's a great destination.
So what are you doing down there? As a travel advisor, owner of a company, what are you doing down there?
So I'm attending, it's called the Fiji Tourism Exchange. And so I am down here meeting with hotels, activities, companies, different touristy things to do. And so it's just days of straight meetings and appointments with people that help me service Fiji better.
Okay. And so you can turn around and sell it to our listeners, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Next week, when I'm completely back with this, we'll have a full report on that. So.
Okay. Coming up in this segment, the final segment of the show, we will be talking about a question that we received from Tricia, one of our listeners, that she has a family of 5 and most cruise cabins only hold 4. You wouldn't think going from 4 to 5 would be a big deal, but apparently it is. And we've got a solution for our listeners. That's coming up here in the remaining moments of the show. But let's first get to the travel news headlines. Let's talk about cruising with a passport and the reasons to do so.
This is a question I get asked often because technically, if you cruise from a U.S. port, return back to the same port, with a few exceptions, you can travel with just a birth certificate. The countries that require passports to be valid for longer, for similar reasons, I would cruise with a passport. If you miss the ship for some reason, you have a medical emergency, you're in a foreign country and you need a passport to get back.
Yeah.
So it is just a good idea to sail with a passport. One thing I have not seen before until this last time at MSC, and I've seen a few other cruise ports that do this. If you have a passport, a lot of cruise ports are now facial ID.
Yeah.
So you basically just walk through. If you don't have a passport, you're put into a separate line. It's usually a long line, and you have to get manually processed by immigration officers. So it'll take you a lot longer on the last day of the cruise to get off the ship. So that's another reason to cruise with a passport.
About a year ago right now, you and I were in Fort Lauderdale. We went on Margaritaville at sea. Paradise was the name of the ship. You got off instantly with global entry. Meanwhile, Patrick didn't have a passport yet, and he had to go into the long line. And
yes.
Mark went to go pick up our car, and we still met about the same time.
Yes.
That's how long that line was.
For various reasons, I always recommend cruising with a passport.
Yep, agreed.
And, also there are some countries in Latin America, in the Caribbean, that now do require people to have a passport because they've had issues of people getting stuck there. And so again, like I mentioned, there are some exceptions to being able to cruise with just a birth certificate now. So keep that in mind when planning a cruise as well.
Hotel scams. I didn't even think that this was still going on, hotel scams, but apparently they are, and how our listeners can avoid getting scammed.
My first recommendation would be to book with a reputable travel agent that you know, because there are lots of travel sites out there, and there are several hotel booking sites that are fake, that put up fake listings and take your money. There's a story recently of a traveler that went to Huatulco in Mexico and got in the taxi, took him to a place, and it was just a vacant lot. And so he walked around for a while, eventually made it to a restaurant. He got all of the local taxi drivers there. None of them have ever heard of this hotel.
Oh, boy.
And so it was a fake listing on a site. So just make sure you book with a reputable site. And, the same goes for booking Airbnb. There have been lots of scams with Airbnb where the owner contacts people directly and asks them to book outside of the site, to pay outside of Airbnb. And then when they get there, there's nothing there and they've taken their money.
Oh, boy.
Just make sure you're booking with reputable agents or with reputable websites or directly on the hotel's website itself.
Southwest is overhauling its fare bundles. Let's start with that. What is a fare bundle?
A fare bundle is fares that include seat assignments, fares that include baggage, different perks. So Southwest you bought a ticket and you got 2 free check bags and they didn't have assigned seats. You just kind of generally boarded. Now Southwest is going to assign seats, and they've started bundling things together like other airlines, like basic economy fares. And so this will start sometime soon, but here are the new fare options that Southwest is going to have. The least expensive fare will be their basic fare, which assigns you a seat at check-in and baggage is additional. Choice is what they're calling it. It gives you a standard seat and 1 bag to check. Choice Preferred lets you book preferred seating and you get preferred boarding. And then Choice Extra provides seats with extra legroom, free checked bags, and pre-boarding.
Would that be considered their first class, for lack of a better way to say that?
Since they don't have first class, that would be their highest. And that would be like on Delta Airlines Comfort Plus, for instance. Right. So it'll be the extra legroom seats.
Tricia was asking, I have a family of 5. This is her email. Most cruise cabins only hold 4. Are there any ships that will accommodate my family of 5? Normally, this wouldn't be a big deal, but for whatever reason, a family of 5, generally speaking, you've always had to get 2 cabins. But apparently, there are a few lines, 4 or 5 cruise lines that will accommodate her family of 5.
Larger families.
Yeah.
And so generally speaking, the minor policy on cruises is if you do have to get 2 cabins, you have to be in a cabin that's connecting or adjacent or across the hall.
Okay.
It has to be in the same area as the parents' cabin, which makes sense with small children.
Yes.
There are some ways around that. You can book one parent in one room and another parent in the other room. But generally speaking, it's harder to cruise with larger families. But there are a few cruise lines, and we'll go through all of them, that do have family rooms that will hold 5 people. And so these aren't suites. There are some suites that will hold more. These are just regular cabins. So Royal Caribbean is the first one. They have a family inside cabin, a family ocean view cabin, which will hold 5. And then they also offer family suites, grand suites, owner suites that accommodate 5 or more guests. Norwegian cruise lines, particularly on the Breakaway and Breakaway Plus classes of ships, have family ocean view cabins that sleep 5. They also offer 2-bedroom deluxe suites on some ships on Norwegian Cruise Line. Holland America on the Koningsdam. So it's only one of Holland America's ships, although Holland America is not necessarily known for family and kids. They do have family ocean view suites available. Carnival Cruise Line on the Dream class of ships. They have a deluxe ocean view cabin that has 2 bunk beds and a sofa bed that can sleep 5. And then Disney, known for its family, does have several cabin categories that are family friendly and can accommodate up to 5. So there are options, and they're becoming more and more options as new ships are built. Probably 6 or 7 years ago, unless you were buying the suites, you couldn't get a family of 5 in a cabin.
Yeah.
And so these newer ships are really starting to put out, especially the cruise lines like Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, and Disney, that really cater towards families, have really added in these categories that will hold 5.
Tricia, I hope that helps you. And I hope that you can get out and go on a family vacation. If you are interested in any of the vacations that we have discussed during the past hour, we've got the hot travel deal of the week, the Globus and Cosmos hub and spoke tours, the cruise deal of the week with $99 deposits per person. Awesome. Get out and see the world while you can. Call Mark in his office. Just get the conversation started. 888-718-7717. 888-718-7717, and he'll also post this on blueplanetvacations.com. You can listen to this show again tomorrow morning, Sunday at 11 o'clock, right here on this radio station, and you can stream, download, and subscribe to the podcast on InsideTravelTalk.com. You can stream the show right on the website, or if you're a podcast lover, you can subscribe to the podcast off that site, and we're on all of the major podcast platforms. Now it's your turn to get out and explore the world while you can, because you never know what curveballs life is going to throw at you. Live your life deliberately, live your life intentionally, live the life that you want. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you again next week.
That's it. That's the end of the show. You've been listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show with Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. Book your adventure right now. Call 888-718-7717. That's 888-718-7717. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.
Inside Travel Talk is brought to you by Travelex Insurance Services. Their travel insurance plans can help protect you and your vacation. Travelex is known for their award-winning customer service and high claims paid rate. Contact Blue Planet Vacations at 888-718-7717 or blueplanetvacations.com for more information.